Hi, welcome to The Witty Entrepreneur. I am Jennifer Bassman, also known as The Witty Entrepreneur. I'm so glad that you joined me today. We've got a lot to chat about. Hopefully not so much that you get overwhelmed, but we are going to talk about that feeling of overwhelm and strategies to fix that feeling of overwhelm. And I am actually speaking from personal experience because I unfortunately do allow myself to get overwhelmed from time to time. I mean, I know it's hard being perfect. You all think I'm perfect, but got news for you, I'm not. But I'm glad you're here today. We've got some good stuff to cover. But first and foremost, before I chat about anything else, I do want to mention my book that is coming out, Stop Being A Doormat. It is actually all about creating boundaries so that you don't get as easily overwhelmed, I should say, and that you have a strategy for keeping yourself sane in times of just sheer craziness, right? But this should be out the end of September. It will be available on Amazon. I will put a link up on jenniferbassman.com. But if you want to know the exact moment this sucker comes out, and you want some exclusive opportunities to join a webinar and get some other information, you can also go to my website, jenniferbassman.com, and sign up for my newsletter, or email me at jennifer@jenniferbassman.com and say, I want on your newsletter, and I will get you on there. It is an exclusive club, I might say. But glad you're here. If you've not met me before, you haven't listened to my lives, worked with me in the past, just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am a small business burnout master, and that comes from some hard-earned experience, I should say. I've been a business owner for more than 20 years, and I did burn out. I did fall flat on my face and burn out. It was an extreme sort of burnout. What does a small business burnout master mean? I help other burned out small business owners work through and conquer their burnout so that they can run a business that fulfills them instead of draining them. Wouldn't that be a dream come true? It is possible, might I say. Just work with me, keep listening. But I'm also a certified CliftonStrengths coach that helps you recognize your strengths and apply them so that you can lose your fears of failure and overwhelm. Because just because you're burned out, and I want to say this time and time again, burnout is not the equivalent of failure. Just because you burned out doesn't mean you failed at something. And we'll talk more about that in other videos to come. But today we are here to talk about organization strategies to beat overwhelm. And this, my friend, these are some strategies that I guarantee will work. I don't put a guarantee on a lot of stuff, but if you try these strategies and you actually implement them, you actually take the hard-earned time to sit down and work through these strategies, they work. I guarantee it. And I don't say that very often. But, you know, dude, we've all been there. These feelings of overwhelm. You feel overwhelmed. You feel like an unorganized disaster. You write on calendars. You make lists. But you still feel like you have no idea what's going on. We've been there. Last week, and just to prove to you that, this happens to me from time to time. Last week, I let you in on a little secret. I am a member of the Messy Desk Club, and I am quite proud of it. Hey, Tamisha, glad you're here. Hi, Rich. Oh, I'm so excited. My friend Rich is here. But yeah, I'm a member of the Messy Desk Club, and I'm pretty proud of it because to me, a messy desk equates a busy mind, a thoughtful mind, and a creative mind. But I'm showing you this because it happens. It happens to all of us. This isn't even the worst of it. To be honest with you, I did clean up a little bit before I took this picture because I was so mortified. You couldn't actually even physically walk to that chair. There were piles of books that were right in front of that chair. But the comments and the camaraderie surrounding this picture were awesome. Oh my gosh. I was like, oh, thank God there are other people that do this to themselves. And yeah, I clean it up, but as I said in that post, I can tell you where everything on that desk was. It's not that I couldn't find anything. I knew exactly where things were on that desk. If my husband needed to see a copy of a bill, if I was looking for some notes, I can tell you exactly where those things were. And I know other members of the Messy Desk Club can do the same thing. So yes, Messy Desk Club members unite. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But this picture, it just cracks me up when I look at it, because I love piles. I tend to be a piler of stuff. And I swear, I think it's genetic because my mom was a piler too. I laugh. And it's a good thing she's not on Facebook or on a computer in general, because she would be mortified that I'm sharing this. But I grew up surrounded by piles. So that's where I learned how to organize, was just put everything in a pile and eventually you'll get to it. But what you do learn is what pile is what and where things are. Doesn't mean everything in the pile goes together or is cohesive, but hey, you learn. That's my system of organization right there. But my piles, now that I'm older and wiser, I know through my CliftonStrengths coaching that my piles are actually basement behaviors of basement behavior of my input strength. And that's so crazy. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm an inputter. I collect things. Obviously, I collect books. I collect notes. And I just, collect Post-it notes. You can see that in the back. So this is totally my input strength, the basement part of it, on display right there. So enough of that. I'm going to take that down right now because this view is much more pleasing to look at. All the plants are very calming, I think. I'm also a big plant person. Not that I can keep them alive, but I love plants. But overwhelm and burnout go hand in hand. This is a topic that I discuss frequently. And it's a consistent topic of conversation with my coaching clients. And it is no wonder, because it is one of the main causes or one of the main things that fuels burnout. So it's not a shock. But it's a topic I love to dive into because it's something that we need to manage in order to manage our burnout, to get through our burnout. So today I'm going to share with you, 4 strategies that I swear by, and I guarantee you they'll work. And if they don't work, you email me. You let me know. And I also always want to hear other strategies people use to get more organized, organizational strategies to beat that overwhelm. So we're definitely going to get through this today. And if you have any to share, totally bring them on. And sometimes, I can relate to this. I mean, as great as a coach as I am, and as organized as I can be at times, I still go through periods where I feel completely overwhelmed. You kind of feel like everything's a mess, everything's out of control. I should say, I lack direction. You may lack direction, and the world just kind of keeps on spinning around you and asking more of you and more of you and more of you. And you just kind of sit there and think, oh my God, if I could just find an off switch for this for a few days, my life would be so much better. It would be so much easier. Where is that freaking off switch? I'm going to show you where that freaking off switch is in a minute. But a few weeks ago, and my desk is probably a clue that this was happening, I actually went through some feelings of overwhelm. Like, it was one of those periods where I just kind of felt like everything was caving in. And I could tell, if I didn't fix what was going on with me right in that moment, then I was going to have some issues. And, when I get overwhelmed, my productivity is terrible. It sucks. And, I've kind of shut down, and I can't really get anything done. But as I said, I really wanted to figure out what the heck was going on. So in that moment, I stopped myself. I stopped what I was doing because I could feel a headache coming on. I could feel myself, your chest just kind of tightens up. All that stress was kind of starting to ball up, and I was kind of working like this around my laptop, for lack of a better, outward display of what was happening to me. But I stopped myself in that moment, and I did a gut check. And asked myself some questions. And the questions that I asked myself was, why was I feeling overwhelmed? What was going on? What was overwhelming me? What triggered the overwhelm? Because there's always some triggering event, whether we notice it or not, there's a triggering event that starts the cascade. And of all the things overwhelming me, what was in my control to change? What was within my control to change? Because there are things, as out of control as everything feels, there are things that are within your control to change. So those 3 questions is what I sat down and asked myself. And what came to me in that moment is, oh my God, I got to start talking to my people about this, because these are great strategies to think about and great strategies to implement yourself. An organization strategy, and I define this as an organization strategy. What's coming up, I define these as organization strategies. So I stopped myself, I asked those 3 questions, and out of it came a list, came a lot of answers that actually calmed me down. So here I am to impart on you 4 strategies that I said, I guarantee these are going to work for you if you take the opportunity to do them. So without further ado, let's get going. Strategy number 1. Strategy number 1 is stop. Literally stop what you're doing. The more you keep going and going and going, it builds up. It just makes the overwhelm kind of mountainous. It builds it up. One thing builds on top of another, and it just poof. I mean, it is just this cloud around you. I think that's actually kind of a good way to put that, because when you're overwhelmed, things are kind of cloudy, they're kind of confusing, things aren't as clear. But the more you keep going, overwhelm builds on overwhelm. And I say stop, which is really hard to do. I know that it's easy for me to say, oh, just stop what you're doing and take a break. Because when you're burned out, you don't like to take breaks. When you're overwhelmed, you feel like the last thing you should be doing is taking a break. But it's actually a priority. It is imperative that you stop what you're doing and you take a break and you regroup and you think about some stuff. So let the world keep on going around you, because you need to stop and catch your breath and calm your mind and calm your nerves. Have you ever noticed how emotional that you get when you get emotional about things? The worse your decision-making skills get. And that's kind of what I'm tying back to when I say you're burned out, you're overwhelmed. The last thing you want to do is take a break. That's a bad decision. So somewhere, make a Post-it note, make a sign, do something that says, so-and-so, in my case, Jennifer, when you get overwhelmed, stop. Just stop. It's okay to stop. And remember that, overwhelm is an emotion. It's a very strong and powerful emotion. And it is a strong, powerful emotion that we need to learn to tame. And that's why we need some organizational strategies, some strategies around it to help keep it contained, to kind of help keep it at bay. Am I going to tell you that these strategies are going to keep you from ever getting overwhelmed again? No. We are human. We get overwhelmed. We let things get the best of us. So what's more important is that we have something that gets us out of those feelings of overwhelm, that helps us deal with those feelings of overwhelm. And when you get overwhelmed, it also easily transitions into negative thinking, negative self-talk. I'm unorganized. I'm not good enough. I don't have enough time. You get the picture, right? So take this power and this energy back to reframe those thoughts. Don't let yourself go down that path, because we all know where that path leads us. It leads us to know we're good. Try to reframe those thoughts into, I need to make a list to get a better handle on what I need to do. I have so much to do. Everyone thinks I'm so capable and wants me on their team and wants me on their project and wants my help. I mean, what a compliment, right? It's just that we need to have boundaries and certain parameters and learn how to say yes to the right stuff and no to the wrong stuff. And, around that thought of, I don't have enough time, ask yourself, what can I delegate, or what tasks can I delegate, or who can I ask for help to make the best use of my time? What is the best use of my time right now? See how we kind of flip that a little bit? And we're going to talk about flipping the script in a minute. Strategy number 2 is ask yourself some questions. Earlier, I said I stopped and I asked myself some questions. There were three questions I asked, 3 or 4 questions there I asked myself. You can make up your own questions, and you can also rip off mine. You're welcome to take them. But you got to ask questions that actually help you, that actually inspire you and inspire that change or that desire to want you to get out of overwhelm or actually get at those feelings of what's causing that overwhelm. So the 3 questions I asked myself were why am I feeling overwhelmed, or what's causing that overwhelm? What triggered the overwhelm to begin with? And of all the things that are overwhelming me, what is in my control to change? So that's what I'm talking about by asking yourself some questions. And sometimes if we just take a few minutes to analyze those feelings and where they're coming from, it's really eye-opening. So when I was triggered at that moment with those feelings of overwhelm, what had actually triggered that spiral into overwhelm, neverland, maybe that's what I should call it. What triggered that is I was actually doing some research on book marketing. And my immediate thought was, crap, I'm behind, which inevitably, I should say, triggered a cascade of worry and doubt that inevitably led to overwhelm. So that was the trigger. That was kind of the series of events or series of thoughts that kind of took me down the wrong path. And I can almost guarantee you that you can identify the same thing when you take a moment and you stop and you say, okay, how did I get here? Because if you can go back to the root of the problem, you can usually solve it. So, what happens to me when I'm overwhelmed and why is this so important is that I pretty much shut down when I get overwhelmed. I don't do anything. I am not productive. I will start playing a game, which is like Scrabble or what's the other one that I play on my phone? I start scrolling through social media. I read a book. I do things that just aren't that productive. My mind just kind of shuts down, which sometimes is okay because sometimes that's the overwhelm is my mind screaming at me that I need to slow down or I need to take a break or I need to let my mind just wander. But in this case, this wasn't a moment where not being productive and shutting down was helpful. So, I flipped the script on myself, and this is where my questions came from, and which led me to strategy number 3 is that make lists or write down, or at least write things down to get them out of your head. Part of what overwhelms so many of us is that we have 1,000 thoughts going through our mind at any given time. We're trying to track things that we need to get done, creative ideas that we've had that we're like, oh, I don't want to forget that. We're thinking about maybe a story we heard on the news. We're thinking about a book that we're reading. We're thinking about a project. You get the drift. We're thinking. We've got 1,000 things going on up there, and we leave them there. We don't give them any outlet. We don't give them anywhere to go. So they just stay up there kind of running. In my brain, I'm envisioning, squirrels or mice running on a wheel. I'm sure that you guys who are smarter have more complicated structures going on, energizing your brains. But I'm just picturing 1,000 wheels up there spinning and nowhere to go. You're not running a race to another destination. It's just going around and around and around your head, and no wonder you're kind of going crazy, right? But this is also where, and I love this strategy. This is probably my favorite because this is where my love of office supplies and Post-it notes, it collides into a fabulous jam session. So strategy number 3 is all about giving those overwhelming thoughts, those feelings, those ideas, and outlets so that you don't spontaneously combust. You don't feel that added pressure of needing to hang on to them, keeping them inside, or end up, if you don't spontaneously combust, you just give up and you go watch Netflix or accidentally drink a whole bottle of wine. Maybe I've done that. Maybe I haven't. I won't tell. But sit down for a minute and make a list, journal, write down all that is overwhelming you. For me, I get overwhelmed with new ideas and all the tasks it takes to complete them, all the different steps that need to come along. And so, what I end up usually doing is writing out all those tasks, writing out all those ideas. And it's kind of amazing what happens when I do that. It's just like this huge weight is lifted off my shoulders. And all of a sudden I see all these things laid out in front of me, and a plan kind of, hey, Christy, a plan kind of forms right in front of me. And I no longer am kind of responsible for holding up all that information up there. It's just kind of right in front of me. And I see what I need to do. I see what I need to delegate. And I also see what I need to just go ahead and forget about. What just doesn't matter anymore. Just forget about it. So as I'm going through these strategies, yes, the world is still going on around me and adding tasks to my list, but things are still piling up, but I'm stopping so that I can come back to that spinning world, that moving world, with a strategy, with a plan that is actually more doable and effective for me. Fair enough, hopefully. But strategy number 4 is change your mind. And this one also, this is probably, out of the 4 strategies I'm sharing with you, this one is probably the most powerful and the most effective. It's also the hardest. And just making that statement, just change your mind, sounds so simplistic, but it literally is as easy as changing your mind and deciding that something, you don't want to do something, you aren't going to be something, you aren't going to listen to someone. You're going to flip the script. That's what it's all about. You are going to change your mind by flipping the switch or flipping the script. Have you ever considered that half the time that we're so worried about what other people are think, or that we have to do things like everyone else, or that there's this, there's a standard, or there's a way that people have always done something, that you just you feel like you have to adhere to it, or just that general feeling of, I've got to get this all done anyway. Flip the script. No, you don't. So, you got to flip the script to a story that works for you. Just, me saying the lines, the ways that I've flipped the script, those work for me in particular, but there's going to be specific words, specific meaningful words or phrases that are going to work better for you. And, flipping the script can be as simple as asking yourself why you need to do something. Like, why am I doing this? Why do I feel the need to do this? Is it absolutely necessary? Why it needs to be done in a certain way, asking yourself why it needs to be done at all, or by or at a certain time. And obviously there's going to be times when, yes, it has to be done something has to be done a certain way, or it has to be done by a certain time. Deadlines, they're wonderful. We need them. I need them. But there are certain pressures we put and expectations we put on ourselves that are absolutely unnecessary. So that's why I'm asking you to ask just some of these basic questions. You don't have to stay stuck. With burnout, we are so good at staying stuck and just kind of in this spot that we just feel like we're never going to dig ourselves out of. But, that's when we stay stuck with that overwhelming thinking that we've got to do things a certain way, or we have to meet certain expectations, it's unhealthy thoughts. That's unhealthy behavior. And it's really time to start correcting those thoughts and start asking yourself some different questions. And question those expectations. Question those expectations that you put on yourself. Question the expectations that other people have of you. And it's okay to say, hey, if these are unreasonable expectations, I've got to cut this down to something that actually works for me. So each one of these strategies, I want to go back and point out, each one of these strategies directly impacts your ability to organize and see a clear picture of what's going on. Because when you're overwhelmed, it's really hard to see that clear picture. What you see is kind of the fuzz, basically, that's on your TV. You don't see anything. So I'm hoping that these 4 strategies, that you'll give them a shot, that you'll take a step back, and next time you're, feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling overwhelmed about something right now, take a step back and apply these 4 strategies. And I will put them up on Facebook, or even maybe try and pull together a little worksheet so that you've got something tangible that you can go back and look at and remind yourself, hey, I'm going to try these 4 steps. I'm going to try these 4 strategies and see if it works this time. Because I can guarantee you that if you really do them, it does work. But I want to know, because I'm always looking for new methods, and I'm always curious how other people pull themselves out of overwhelm. What strategies you try? What do you do? What's worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? Those are all things that I think, help us all. And as we build this supportive community, it's helpful to talk to each other and say, hey, I'm working through this issue. I feel really overwhelmed with it. Can somebody talk me through this so that I can look at it a different way? Sometimes I have to turn to a friend of mine and say, hey, I've got to flip the script on this. I have to think about this in a completely different way. It's not working for me right now. And that other person, my friend, will usually help me see whatever is overwhelming me in a brand new light, in a way that even I couldn't possibly fathom. So let's unstick ourselves. Let's stop staying stuck in those feelings of overwhelm. And let's put these 4 strategies up somewhere where you can see them and you can try them on a daily basis. I am so glad you joined me today. I would love to hear from you, and would love to hear strategies that you've tried to unstuck yourself from overwhelm, organizational strategies. What are certain things that you have to do, whether it's making a list, whether you need to clean something. That is also something that I've heard from some people, that if I just go clean something, if I clean out a drawer, if I clean the countertops, I feel way better. I feel like it's a whole new world. Would love to hear these strategies from you. I think they're great. And I try each and every one of them too. And maybe I'll show you a picture of an unmessy desk. If somebody can help me with a strategy to have a more organized desk, I'm all ears. And my husband would really appreciate that too. I think it makes him nervous when he sees it. But I'm glad you're here. Don't forget to swing by and sign up for my newsletter, Jennifer Bassman .com. You can also email me at jennifer@jenniferbassman.com, and I will get you on there too. But so glad you joined me this week. Happy hump day. Have a great rest of the Wednesday.